Yes.
That's a great answer. I guess if you could elaborate a little bit, because that dream also shows, I'm trying to bring the child and the pathology in the same dream, so maybe you could talk a little bit about the dynamic of choice. I think Christa touched on that a little bit too in her dream, the son walking off into the water. So could you talk a little bit about making choices in dreams between some of these forces?
One of the big problems in dreams is that the dreamer is often lying. And the dreamer doesn't know they're lying, but I always bet that probably 90% of you, if I worked your first 2 dreams, I could show you that your assumptions about what takes place in the dream are actually wrong. So, like Rodger assumed he was a teacher, and he really wasn't. We think somebody's the extrovert, but they aren't really. Or somebody is, and we don't know it. Somebody's hurting us, we don't know it. So it could be either way. So in first stage dreaming, we really don't know who the enemy is and who the lovers are, who cares about us and who hates us. And the supreme arrogance of it is the dreamer believes, the dreamer is the one that's in trouble, it's getting the dream to be helped, yet they're the ones that interpret the dream, and in fact, they interpret it for the dream analyst. Because most dream analysts believe the dreamer. In fact, the big argument in the Jungian world is that many Jungians believe you always trust what the dreamer believes in the dream. And that's like, what? The person that's sick, you're giving them the power to heal themselves. I mean, if they could do it, they would. We all want to be good. We're tricked, which is what annihilates us. So you don't give the power back to the dreamer and say, well, I don't know what it's about. I guess what you think it is what it is. So you have to be very good, if you're going to do this work, and very good at discerning and helping the person and taking the cues. Because the dream shows you where the trick is, where you're being tricked. If you don't catch that, all your dream work is simply allowing what you call amelioration, adaptation, allowing the pathology to become stronger. Hillman warns us that we get stronger with dream work, our pathology gets richer. It learns like a computer. It learns, and gets bigger and fatter, and we get more erudite, more intelligent, and more lost of our souls. Going from a dysfunctional person to a happy person could be an act of losing our soul.
An example I thought of, it's a simple one, about deception. The client was talking on the cell phone to a woman that he worked with, and he couldn't hear her. So he got in his car and drove over to see her. And so we stopped at that point, and I said, that's very nice of you, but why didn't you ask her to speak up? And then he kind of realized, that's just what in other words, he couldn't even assert himself enough to ask what he needed, and instead he was going to drive all the way over to talk to her. So the self-deception, the thing I was supposed to make about in working with you in the beginning was how deluded continually I was in my dreams, but even more importantly, that those dreams reflected the reality of my projections and delusions in waking life. They were very faithful to that and very true to that, and I thought that was a very surprising thing, I guess, coming from a place of thinking, well, they're just dreams. But they're not just dreams, because they have a huge fidelity to the actuality of how we are in the world.
These things that are so problematic in dreams, it's just a dream, like you were saying. We live in the world. And you might not, how do I live? This guy is raping me in my anus in the world. I love my wife, a good job, how do I do that? And yet, that person may be suffering in some extreme ways, and maybe even take their own lives because of it. They wouldn't say a word about it. And they won't tell you, but you tell them. The dream is telling you about what they're living through in the world. A lot of this is conscious, and people, they just don't want to talk about it.
Let's talk about the rescue package. The part we really haven't discussed as much. I'm sorry, did you?
Well, no, I was just thinking about the same thing. So, where was I? Yeah, I know what I want to say. So, you're the client, and you bring in this dream, and what you thought was true and what you were identified with is suddenly revealed by the person before you as, crap, basically. It's like you've been living this lie. And so you would think, being here in the audience, oh my God, you'd want to run screaming from the room. But actually, what happens is, that tiny being inside, like that tiny divine spark, that soul self, is like, hello, thank you for hearing me. I'm really so glad that somebody is telling the truth in this moment. And maybe you waited, 40 years of adult life to have somebody say, I know this is not who you are. Like, this is who you are. So that, for me, is that moment of working with people in that electrifying moment to turn the dream around and say, actually, this man is in your dream who you think is bad, and is like, he is the one who wants to bring you through this mess that you've made of your life. And then to see, there's like a few seconds of what's going to happen, and then to see this person, relief dawn on some level. You can see in someone's eyes, and so I think that's the beginning.
Or run.
Or they do it, and then you're like, well, okay, this isn't the right thing for this person. But it's a way that the dream is so unrelenting in its honesty that in working with the dream, there's nothing to do but speak the truth of the dream. And the person who really wants to know who they really are will want to know more. And so that is the beginning of a kind of willing collaboration between therapist and client that is the beginning of a possible extraordinary adventure.
Now, in Rodger's case, I want to acknowledge this man. When he realized, because he's lived his life as a teacher, high-functioning guy, there's no reason why he should look at himself. None. He's got a great wife, he's got money, everybody loves him. He's a caring, intelligent man. He serves God in many ways. And yet, he had to put all that aside. To decide he wanted to not be this teacher and the terror of what it meant, that how he had gotten so lost from himself. That choice is unfortunately rare. But a lot of people that do so well in the world would often make the choice, well, I'm not going to give this up. And I just want to acknowledge the extraordinary step that Rodger made, because in the real light of day, I would say 80% of successful folks would probably, that would be the last session.
I had a number of those who weren't.
I always got you came back.
Well, I learned. I don't know what the time is. Is that forwards or backwards?
Yeah, 45 left.
Oh, we have 45 minutes more. Oh, joy. Yeah. So let's go to the third part of the. I want to mention one thing that Marc has mentioned a few times, but I don't know if we've clarified. First, second, I think there's a third stage, and maybe beyond. So maybe we should take a moment, and then I want to go to the archetype. So do you want either of you to clarify this notion of the stages you mentioned?
Basically, first stage is confronting. Second stage is bringing what you were talking about when you went into the water and dealing with fear. That's second stage work, where feelings are alchemical. They produce, like you were saying, the dissolution of another thing. Feelings that we hate are actually things that will draw us into a great change of awareness and feeling. Feelings beget other feelings. Now, of course, there are emotions which are not the same, but just for this time being, that's the work of second stage. And in that, the archetypes begin to come and arrive. And I guess you have questions about that, we put that on. In the third stage, that's the calling. That's where we talked about what it is that you knew to do and forgot. At that point, your soul is reconnected, and then you fulfill the calling, which is what you're asked to do, where God truly speaks through you, because you can hear and feel Him, because your soul is reconnecting.